Well, I'm really happy to get through the first module, and one of the things that you're going to notice in this 10-module course is we're always going to conclude with a formative quiz. Now, it's not too difficult. I'm just going to be recapping in this video here what I hope that you have learned through these different sections of each of the modules. Now, each of the modules is structured in the same way, where you've got these 3 journaling lessons, and then you've got a series of 2 people that I have interviewed that are showing us how they've adhered to this process. And then there is the lesson plan that we worked on to kind of recap really what I'm recapping if I were in prison and I had an opportunity to listen to those people. These are the takeaways that I would have had. And the reason that I structured it that way is really deliberate. You see, as I mentioned in some of our coursework, that the opportunities that opened for me while I was in prison, they were available for every other person with whom I was confined. The problem is that those people didn't get inspired by Socrates at the very start of their journey in the way that I did. I was very fortunate that a staff member in the jail where I was confined passed me this book, A Treasury of Philosophy, and that completely changed my life because it changed the way that I think. It helped me to recognize the importance of documenting a journey, of keeping these daily records of what I am going to do to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. And I want you to be thinking about this as well. But in order to fully convey or bring it full circle, the lesson, I've got to show, well, what happened with other people? Why does our prison system, out of every 100 people that go through our prison system, why do 70 of them end up having more problems with the criminal justice system after they conclude their term the first time? And what can we do to make things better? I can only show what I learned from people like Nelson Mandela, Malcolm X, Viktor Frankl, all of these people who went through struggle, but instead of being a victim of their circumstance, they turned their circumstance into an opportunity. And it didn't happen by accident. They always had what I call the CEO mindset. And I call it the CEO mindset because I learned this from listening and learning from CEOs. And that's really a big part of my job, is to work with business leaders and find out what problems are you trying to solve and what are the strategies that you use to solve those problems. And I know that if I listen and learn from them, I can incorporate those same lessons into my life. And that, when I was kind of working to prepare this, I found this little wallet. And this is a wallet that really I carried through prison, all through 9,500 days in prison. I always had one of these things with me because in the federal system, we're always required to keep our IDs with us. And so I was looking it through right there, and there is the last ID that I had, right? So this is an important reminder for me that I always carry with me. It shows the 163770004, Michael Santos. It shows me as a big letters there, inmate. I never like to use that word inmate because to me that's kind of the way that the system puts a label on us. But we're all human beings, and we're all people that regardless of what bad decisions we made in the past, if we're inspired by leaders, we can make decisions that will change things. And this was the next ID card I got when I first got out of prison. And it says San Francisco State University, and it has my name, but instead of a number, a prison number, it says faculty. Because I was a professor at San Francisco State University within 2 weeks of finishing 26 years in prison. Now, I also had a wife. We just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary. And I used to carry this with me just to remind me, I may be in prison, but the prison system is not what is going to define me. Rather, I am going to define my own life by the choices that I make and the commitment I make to leading a values-based, goal-oriented life. And that's what all of these lessons share together. In fact, one of the mentors that I write about, Mahatma Gandhi, used to say, in order to lead a fulfilling life, or in order to achieve happiness, and I'm paraphrasing here, he would say, we have to keep everything we say, everything we think, and everything we do in harmony. That's the real value of journaling. And journaling isn't something that is right or wrong. You can write about it any way that you choose. What's important is that you're aligning your decisions consistently with how you are defining success. And we can define success in many different areas of our life. But to the extent that we apply this principled, deliberate approach, my belief and what I strive to show is that you can achieve a higher level of performance in all areas of your life if you use this principle, right? We see a lot of people who achieve enormous success in one area, okay? We see this a lot, it's profiled a lot in like celebrities, right? Somebody may be a phenomenal athlete, okay? But that person may also achieve the highest levels of success as an athlete, but on another level, that person may fall off, like they may become addicted to substance abuse, and that may destroy their life. So in that area, they've kind of fallen off track. Well, a principled, deliberate approach, my hopes are it would solve that problem. It would change that. And that's one of the things that I always try to do, is to incorporate this principle of journaling, of defining success, of setting clear goals, of going through the straight A guide, which we've taught about, and of course, which I've written about extensively through all of this work here. In fact, the whole journey of my life, my whole career, is about showing that regardless of what bad decisions I may have made at one time in my life, at any time, I can start making decisions that will advance me to a new chapter. Okay, I may be able to turn the page of my book or start writing the next chapter. And that next chapter can be phenomenal. But it's not going to happen by accident, and it's not going to happen by happy talk. And that's the reason we have to hold ourselves accountable. And what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at the formative quiz, which will be the last part of each module. And so the formative quiz, what I'm going to do is just kind of recap what we covered in this module, and I'm going to respond to the questions, and with hopes that they will help you get to the answers as well. Because my understanding is that not only do you get a certificate or something like that for completing this course, but if you're in some prisons, like the California Department of Corrections, you can earn milestone credits. And those milestone credits really advance your future in a meaningful, measurable way by potentially reducing your time in confinement. But even if you're in a system that doesn't have a milestone credit, it can certainly help you, just as the documenting my journey through prison helped me. Didn't get me out of prison a day earlier, but it opened an abundance of opportunities just by documenting the story. So I'm really encouraging you to document your story every single day, just as all leaders do. They hold themselves accountable in some kind of way. A journal is a manner of you holding yourself accountable and not just allowing the system to define what you're doing. So let's do this really simple recap here of what we learned in these lessons. Now, we started with 3 different journal entries. I'm filming this video on the 4th of July, 2021. So I don't know when you're watching it, but you can see through those journals that I really started to plan this process much earlier. Because in January of 2021, I started to fill out the blanks of how I am journaling my life. What was I doing on January 1st to position myself for July of 21 and August and 22 and 23. All of the work that I do is in symmetry. It all works together. okay? Not only for products that I sell to administrators of the prison system, but also it's what I show businesses as well when I'm building my other for-profit business. I have a nonprofit business and a for-profit business. But the first question was, in what ways are you defining success? Well, that's a question for you to ask yourself. Like, what are you doing today that shows you are defining success in your life and you're on a very clear and directed path? Everybody in prison with whom I served time could have been asking that same question, but they didn't. Many didn't. Many succumbed to that mantra that exists in so many prisons, and that is the best way to serve time is to forget about the world outside and to focus on your life in prison. Of course, you know that I rejected that mantra. I didn't want to be in prison. I say the longer, there's kind of an irony in that the longer we expose people to corrections, the less likely those people are to emerge successfully. But if we want to change that pattern, if we want to interrupt that pattern or disrupt that pattern, we've got to show how do we think differently. And all I can do is show you, hey, these are lessons that leaders taught me. And that's why my journal focuses always on defining success. So you want to be able to answer that question. And I think that you see that through the people I profiled in the lesson. Second, you want to document the strategy. So for me, defining success at the beginning of this year was to build a product that I hoped I could create a revenue stream from, and also teach and inspire people in prison. Well, in order to do that, I needed to document a strategy. That strategy was, first of all, to write the course. Second, create the videos, as you saw, that I created, so that I could show you I'm not asking you to do anything that I didn't do. That's the same thing I did in prison. And then third, execute the strategy every day, right? Putting my priorities in place. I had to buy cameras. I had to learn how to edit videos. I had to learn how to edit audio files. I had to learn how to form a nonprofit. I had to learn how to, what people might be candidates to contribute to a nonprofit, right? All of that while simultaneously building my other businesses, but they all work in harmony because everything that I am doing is consistent with what I think, with what I say, and with what I do. At least I hope that's what you will find with me. You'll see that I'm always striving to be authentic. That's one of the important points or the salient points of our course. And you may also notice that I'm using some of the vocabulary words that are also a part of our course. And there's a reason that I use those vocabulary words. It's because it influences the way people look at me, right? I need to disrupt or interrupt the pattern of what people think of a guy that came out of jail for 26 years. And that's what I'm doing every day, because I'm always striving to overcome some of the stigma that really hinders progress for formerly incarcerated people. I always consider myself unemployable. Nobody is ever going to hire me. I have to create my own businesses and my own income streams. And in order to do that, I got to follow the strategies that I use here. And that's why the third journal talks about setting very clear goals. What were some of the goals that I had to set to get this thing off the ground? Well, I had to write the book, right? You can see the book right there. This is the book, The Earning Freedom. This is the Earning Freedom Journal right there. And that book is what I used to base the product on. Then I had to answer all of the questions. So every day I was completing a video. Then I had to publish the video. These were all clear goals, right? And I showed you that. Then I had to identify business leaders and ask them or invite them to participate in the program by sharing their story. And business leaders they've got a lot of activities. They've got a lot of employees. They've got a lot of I think, activities just competing for their time. So I've got to persuade those people that, hey, this is a way that we can help people in prison start to believe in themselves. And so I'd get James Patterson, James, to share his story. And he's the CEO of many companies. He's a business leader who sold companies to Microsoft and started companies that he sold to, other big tech companies. He's a leader. But we could learn from listening to leaders like James. I learned from listening to leaders like James by the patterns that he set. And those patterns would have influenced my behavior when I was in prison. I know that there are more interesting things to watch than this video course, right? I mean, anybody in prison can tune into television shows and watch something that might interest them, or follow sports or play table games. But the question, if you're deliberate, if you're using a journal, you're always going to be asking questions. Are the activities that I am pursuing advancing me towards success as I defined it? That's the value of a self-directed journaling program, right? This is self-help with journaling. This is not somebody else doing it for you, because nobody can do it for you, just like nobody could do it for me. I had to believe in myself, and I needed a principled, disciplined path that would take me from where I am at the very start, locked inside of a segregated housing unit with a 45-year prison sentence, and say, what am I going to do to emerge from here? And so I would listen and learn from leaders all around me. Some of those leaders I would never meet. They would just be people I watched on a video, or I may have read an article about them, or I may have read a book about them. Well, in so doing, I could listen to how they spoke and say, how could I learn to speak that way? I could listen to the words that they use, and I would say, are those words similar to the prison environment, or do they more represent what exists in the business community? And I would have to practice, because if I don't practice, I won't know how to use those words. And so journaling would help me stay on path. It would help me stay focused. And I think that journaling can help you stay focused. We also heard from Adam, who I really admire, because Adam's a person that was honest about having some challenges with the criminal justice system from the time he was an at-risk youth to the time he served prison terms in adult facilities in California. But despite his problems with the law, Adam succeeded in building businesses that employ hundreds of people, that generate millions of dollars in tax revenues, and have made him an affluent leader in his community, even though he served 2 terms in prison. And so I think it's really important for all of us to recognize, wow, we can learn from the lessons in this particular module. Number 1, we have to learn how to document our story, because we're always telling a story. Number 2, we have to really set clear goals of what's important for us. And number 3, we really have to put priorities in place. We have to know what we have to do first in order to advance to the next prong of our plan. We're building a ladder, and that ladder is going to take us from the difficult, challenging times we're in today and advance us to the success that we want to become. And I hope that you see throughout all of this work that I don't ask you to do anything that I am not doing, right? I'm not reading a teleprompter here. This isn't a lesson that I'm studying and mocking, or what would you call it, just reciting or regurgitating from somebody else. This is the pattern that worked for me. And I am just like you, a person that made really bad decisions as a young man. And, well, I don't know if you made really bad decisions as a young man. I know I made really bad decisions as a young man. And as a result of those bad decisions, I went to prison for a very long time. Well, I would consider 26 years in prison a very long time. But I also know that by using a journal, I succeeded in overcoming many of the challenges that complicate life for other people. So now I'm going to turn to the questions that you will follow in the formative quiz, which is directly what follows this video. Okay? So the formative quiz, the first question is, what was the name of the person that visited Socrates in jail? Now I covered that in lesson 1 because Socrates was the one that really started me on this entire path. I don't know if you've heard about Socratic questioning before, but it tells us if we have challenges in life, we can find answers by asking the right questions. And Socrates received a visitor. That visitor was named Crito, and Crito really changed Crito's question to Socrates, and Socrates' response to Crito's question really changed my life. And so I gave you 3 options here in the quiz: Plato, Aristotle, Crito. All of them have a relationship to Socrates, but the answer is Crito. Number 2, how did Socrates measure success? And there's a lot of ways to measure success, okay? But Socrates really believed that in a democracy, a person has the right to work to change laws that person doesn't agree with. The person doesn't have a right to break laws. And that made a big difference on me. So he defined success as living honorably as a good citizen. And I encourage you to remember that for the quiz. And number 3, from the journal lesson, which is when I was journaling my own life, right? I asked, what was not one of the author's 3-part strategy to prove worthy of a second chance in society? I told you what the 3 prongs were of my plan when I set it out. It was 1, to educate myself; 2, to build a strong support network; and 3, to contribute to society. One of the options here was to be a model inmate. Well, that was not one of my stated goals while I was in prison, to be a model inmate. My stated goal was to emerge successfully, to come back as a law-abiding, contributing citizen. And so the 3 prongs that I set were contribute to society, earn academic credentials, and to build a strong support network. So those were really clear. Number 4, what does the word onus mean? And I give you 3 examples, but I can just tell you, onus is really to have a duty or a responsibility. As somebody who served 26 years, I feel as though I have a duty and a responsibility to go back into jails and prisons as much as I can and show the strategies that leaders taught me, because they made a big difference in my life. They've allowed me to build businesses and careers and come back and try and even share these messages with you. So I felt that was a duty and a responsibility. The onus was on me to achieve those goals. Number 5, which of the following has all the characteristics of a SMART goal? Now, remember a SMART goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's action-oriented, it's realistic, and it's time-bound. So if it doesn't have all those 5 characteristics, it's not a realistic goal. So, you know, the SMART, the only one here that meets all of those characteristics is I'm going to get my GED within 12 months, right? It's specific. I'm going to get a GED. It's realistic. You can do it. It's measurable. Either you get it or you don't. It's time-bound, 12 months, right? So that makes it a SMART goal. Now, the next question is, what time frame did the author use to set for the goals that he set? Well, I didn't set it in 1 month, didn't set it in 10 months. I set it for 10 years because I had a 45-year sentence and I needed to know, what am I going to get done in the first 10 years? What's going to differentiate me from everybody else in the prison, in my view, to make me stand out for the people that will judge me in the future? And I always believed that people would be judging me in the future. So now we're going to turn to James's lesson. In what branch of the military did James serve? Well, James was in the Air Force. He told us that in the video, and that's also in the lesson plan. What kind of officer post did James have in the military? Well, he was a captain of communications. And he talks about how what he learned in that role contributed to him building businesses that later sold to Microsoft and sold to other industries and helped him become a successful CEO. Number 9 is, how many terms in prison did Adam serve before he became a successful businessman? And Adam was very honest with us. He said he had some problems with the law as a young man, and he went to prison once. He got out, he began building his life, but he didn't separate himself from his criminal associates. As a result, he went back to prison a second time. So he served 2 terms in prison. And finally, number 10, in what sector did Adam build a successful business? Notice I use the word sector because I'm trying to show you new words all the time. And I offered, just some options here, but Adam built his career in the finance sector, which is typically not a sector that people would associate with somebody who served time in federal prison or in state prison on multiple occasions. So that concludes this video here. And I want you to work through the quiz and respond to the quiz. You got to get 7 out of 10 right, but I just gave you the answers here, so I hope that you're paying close attention, but more importantly, I hope that you've worked through all of the lessons and that you found value in that, and that you will stick with our program, because I'm confident that if you develop a self-help pathway to journaling, you'll become self-directed and you will change the outcome of your life. I sincerely believe that. It's something I do every day, and it's what I am hoping that you will have success as well on the other side of this journey. I am Michael Santos. On behalf of our entire team at Prison Professors, we thank you.